I think the human touch is was actually gonna be a trend now because we're all so computerized and
Yes.
AI driven and
Yeah.
technological. Business still is about relationships.
Hey everyone, this is Bethany Meadows, your host of Time to Thrive. Today we're excited to welcome Steve Strauss, a leading small business expert and best-selling author. Named by SCORE as the nation's top small business champion, Steve has helped countless entrepreneurs succeed. He is the author of The Small Business Bible and Your Small Business Boom, just to name a few, where he shares proven strategies for growth. Join us as we tap into Steve's expertise on building and scaling a thriving business. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Great to be here, Bethany. Thanks for having me.
Well, like always, we ask our guests to pick a number between 1 and 5 and for their super random question.
Let's go with 5.
5. What instantly makes you not like another person?
Wow, that's a great question. Um,
So I know what not to do during this interview.
you know what? It's for me, it's showing off.
Mm,
Because here's what I think. I think if someone is great or exceptional, they don't need to tell you they're great and exceptional, right? They know it and it comes through with how they are and how they act and what they say. And when someone is insecure and nervous or not great or exceptional, they love telling you all the great things they do. And I just think your deeds and success and the way you are speaks for itself. So that's for me, that's what it is. That turns me off a lot. What about for you? What instantly turned
that's
didn't
great.
go?
I mean, authenticity is really important. So, um, you know, I actually was recording a video this morning, and I said in the video, I'm not a big fan of being on camera,
Is that right?
because when I look at myself later, I'm like, why is my face making that weird, you know, whatever. I'm having a bad hair day or whatever.
Right.
And I think, to some extent, it's just a matter of getting over ourselves and realizing when we're just who we are, that we attract the right people to us, and
Absolutely.
we can't really be anyone that we're not. So I love that answer.
Good.
Um, let's let's kinda jump in. Oh, this is a really challenging environment right now for small
Boy.
businesses,
Boy, that's
and
the
really
truth.
the
Yeah.
last 5 years has has been a lot of peaks and valleys, right?
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about what you feel are some of the bigger challenges that business owners are having right now and how they can overcome them.
I think a consistent the 2 things that small business owners always deal with a lot is time and money, right? Not enough time, not enough money. Typically, not always, but typically. But given that, this age of technology that we're in, and I've seen this, as you mentioned, I've written a lot of books. I was the USA Today small business columnist for many years. I write my column for Inc. I have a newsletter called Notes to an Entrepreneur, right? And so I think about entrepreneurs and small businesses every day and write and create content for them. And even 15 years ago, one of my tips was make sure you get a website, right? That was my hot tip, but it was a hot tip back then, right? Because
Mm,
the reason I mention that is because technology is always an issue, I think, for small businesses. You do your business, you make your money, you service your customers, you get your leads, right? You have your funnel set up. All those things are great. And that issue of time to learn the new technology is what I think is the biggest issue most people a lot of people that I see and work with deal with, right? And now it's not get a website, now it's master AI, right?
right,
And how are you gonna master AI and how are you gonna use it? And you we have to because it is a revolutionary tool. It's an amazing tool. If you use it right, it can make you a lot of money. It can save you a lot of time and money, right? Both those
right.
things. But l- learning all like I know a woman who I follow on TikTok and I've interviewed her and her whole back end is automated through AI. Her AI sends out her pitches, and then someone responds to her pitch, and her AI gets into a conversation with the person, and then it goes far enough along that her AI even sets up calendar calendar invites. And so as soon as she gets an invite, she knows she has a hot lead waiting for her, and she's done nothing. But to learn how to be able to do that is, interesting and not honestly, it's difficult, but it takes the time, and you gotta do it, though. So to me, that's how I see it. I agree,
Yeah.
not agree?
Well, yeah, and you mentioned websites. I mean, back in the day, if you didn't have a website, you weren't a it was you were in danger of not even being credible. Am I
Right,
even a business if I don't have a website? And it really just had to be a page to say I exist. And then it became about social media and, did I have
right.
a Facebook page or a LinkedIn page? And if I don't, do I really exist? Right? We kind of went through that process. Um, and now all of those things in the digital and AI age are all integrated and speaking to each other and flowing information in and out in ways that we could never have anticipated. I mean, I talk to my grandkids. I have 6 grandkids, and their big thing is one day they want to get a phone of their own, right? And
Yeah,
I
of
think,
course.
I was in my mid-20s before I had a
Right.
phone. And so it's just a different world now coming up and those of us in the, I'm gonna say over 50 to be kind or over 40. Over 40 is kind of myself. I am over 50, but,
I'm over
um,
52, yeah.
those of us, we weren't born with technology in our hand, and this new age can be pretty challenging to keep up with things. Like and I'm not even just talking about using ChatGPT to bust out a few social media posts, but we're
Right.
talking about like, the example you gave of automating our businesses in ways that, um, you know,
It was just unheard of not
yeah,
so long ago.
yeah, and it's
Or if you
changing
had it, it was
quickly.
very expensive to create a solution like that, but it's not expensive and it's not that hard, but it does take the efforting to do it, and that's what I think is challenging often.
Right, right. I mean, you've worked with some major brands, like, I understand you've worked with PayPal, Visa, and companies like that. So, in comparing we can always learn lessons from each other.
Right.
I'm not a Visa or a PayPal, but I'm sure they do some things that I could incorporate into my small business. Do you have some ideas like that you could draw from your experience of those bigger working with those bigger companies
Yeah.
that small business owners may not be thinking about?
So, here's what I know about these big businesses. They spend a lot of time thinking about, researching, talking to, and making products for we small business people. And we don't often know that as small business people, right? We kind of haphazardly find whatever tools we need or and slapdash put them together. But for many years I was Microsoft's small, brand ambassador for small business. And once a year they would bring me to their campus up in Redmond and show me what they were working on. And the breadth of tools that they were creating specifically for small business. It wasn't just some big enterprise tool that they were stripping down and calling small business, which is what, a lot of companies do. Instead, it is companies like Microsoft or whether it's PayPal, whoever it might be, creating specific tools, working with small businesses, creating them for small businesses. And it's incumbent upon us as small business owners, as entrepreneurs, to really take advantage of that and to use those tools and to use them in an integrated way. Like recently, I was talking to the vice president of small business for Verizon, and we were talking about trends for the upcoming year for 2025. And her big take was uh, what small businesses are starting to do and need to do is integrate all their different tools into one system so that you're not using 5 different things from 5
Right,
different manufacturers, but you find a dashboard that integrates them and they're all one, and it's really you learn that one thing, and that saves you time and money and effort and it makes you money, right? So my suggestion is take the time and go look for some of these tools that are out there because they're out there and they're incredible and they make your life easier. They make making a profit easier. But you have to go out and seek them out and use them. And if you do that, then you're going to be, set up for this change era that we're going through for sure.
right. I never wanna be a dinosaur. I never wanna be the one that got left behind because I didn't wanna lean in. And, one thing I've experienced and I find, as I'm not a techie person, I'm a creative person, right? And
Uh-huh.
so I like working in brand and content development and all those things, and trying to do things that are in the tech world, it physically hurts my brain. Bookkeeping hurts my brain, things like
Yeah,
that. But I do find that the more that I lean into that, the more I give myself over to figuring out, you realize there really is, um, it becomes intuitive almost. Like the more I like be open to that, like I'm going to learn ChatGPT, I'm going to learn make.com for automation. I'm going to
right,
learn, some of these other technologies. We use Kajabi a lot for that all in
right,
one, kind of idea, but the more we do that, the more you realize how similar they are to each other, and so if you can learn one, the rest don't feel
right.
quite
Yes, that's for sure. And I really want to emphasize there. So we're talking about technology a lot, but these soft skills, like you're talking about, and your intuition as an entrepreneur. What is it that drove you to become an entrepreneur? Whatever that is special. Like so, I mentioned I do this newsletter called Notes for an Entrepreneur, and a couple times a week I take a famous entrepreneur and tell the backstory of how they had their breakthrough moment. Because there was a time when these fantastic entrepreneurs were just like you, just like me, and they were trying to figure it out, and they figured it out. Like, I told the story not long ago about Tommy Hilfiger, okay,
mhm,
who, this famous designer, but when he wasn't a famous designer back in the '80s, he was just he was just working on them, in some design shop, and he was just another guy, and he really wanted to have his own fashion line and be an entrepreneur and be, out there, and he didn't know how he didn't want to apprentice, until he was mid-40s. So he went and he hired a PR guy, and the PR guy, he said, "Come up with an idea for me. I need to do something." And PR guy came up with this audacious plan. He said, "I think you should buy a billboard in Times Square across from Ralph Lauren's polo shop and compare yourself to the great designers of the day. Compare yourself to Perry Ellis and Calvin Klein and Ralph Lauren." And, Tommy Hilfiger's like, "That's those are world famous, fantastic designers. How could I do something like that?" But he did it. He got himself some backers. He went and anyone can Google it and find this billboard. It's really neat to look at. And he bought this billboard. It says, "Who is Tommy Hilfiger? The next Ralph Lauren, you know, Perry Ellis, Calvin Klein, something like that." And
yeah.
it was crazy audacious. But you know what? The next week he was on the Tonight Show and he never looked back, right? So, yeah, you gotta learn your technology and learn your tools, but you also gotta be a bold risk taker if you're gonna be a great entrepreneur. And I'd be remiss as an entrepreneur if I didn't say, go to news.planetsmallbusiness.com and sign up for my newsletter.
Good
Planet Small
job.
Business is my website, and, you know, there you go. There's
Well,
my
that
pitch.
kind of, brings in the idea that, getting really comfortable with failure as an entrepreneur, because failure isn't a negative the way we necessarily see it. Failure is just learning that's one way not to do it. Thomas Edison is famous as trying 1,000 different ways
Right.
to make the light bulb until he finally was successful, and in that moment, he was like, "Well, I just learned 1,000 ways not to do it."
I'll even top you on that. Well, my friend calls this double pneumonia. It's like, "You had pneumonia? I have double pneumonia." Okay, so I'm gonna double pneumonia you right now. James Dyson, who invented the Dyson vacuum cleaner, had 5,700 failures before he figured out that cyclone technology that his stuff uses, right? So you do absolutely, like you just said, have to become,
Yeah.
familiar and comfortable with striking out sometimes.
Tommy Hilfiger could have put up that billboard and nothing happened, and he would have tried
Absolutely.
something else. So, it's just about, resilience and keep going. We talk about, inside Time to Thrive, we're big on growth, and we brand a lot of things around grow in our framework of grow. And I know that's a big thing for you too. It's about scaling smart,
Right.
right? Can you talk a little bit? I know you talk about it in your book quite a bit. So can you talk to that as well?
Yeah, so my last book was, Your Small Business Boom, and I wrote that in the middle of COVID because my publisher came to me and said, "Okay, all of small businesses are struggling right now. Uh, let's come up with a strategy book for how not to. So each chapter of that book is a different way to do what you just said to grow your business. How to get a million social, not how to get 100,000 social media followers, and how to get a million hits to your website, and how to, uh, you know, find the right teammates. One of the things I really love is this idea of finding the right teammate, right? Because often in so there are 30 million small businesses in the United States. 99% are small, or there are 30 million businesses, excuse me. 99% are small businesses. And of all those, the 80%, the vast majority are one person businesses. So small businesses often are kind of out there by themselves, trying to figure it out, doing what they do. But you know what? There are teammates out there, potential JV partners, whatever it is, who can you find a company that's similar to yours, that's simpatico to your business. And let's say you guys decide you're going to do a project together. Well, all of a sudden you're going to have half the cost because you're doing it with somebody else, and you're going to get double the amount of people looking at your business because you're going to have access to their email list, right, and to their customer base. So just by doing something as simple as finding a right teammate, teaming up, doing something with them, you can really grow your business, right? So that's really amazing. The other thing I think is really important is growing your list, right? These days, online marketers, and you know this probably better than anybody, say the money is in the list, right?
Yeah.
Because if you create a great list, all of a sudden, what is a list? What is an opt-in? When someone opts in to your newsletter, to your educational email series, to your lead magnet, whatever it is, they're asking you to contact them again. They're giving you permission to contact. Now, that's pretty remarkable, right? In this era where we're all inundated with marketing and advertising all the time, to have someone say to you, I want to get your newsletter. I want to hear from you. That's amazing. So you got to take advantage of that, nurture it, use it, and then and use the 80-20 rule. Spend 80% of your time with your list, helping them and helping them grow and helping them do their business, helping them do whatever it is you do to help your customers. And then 20% you can talk about yourself. You do something like that, and your list is going to grow. You're going to grow. Your customers are going to love you, and you're staying in constant contact with them, right? And that's kind of an amazing thing. I love the idea of growing a list. One last thing along those lines, let me get myself a little cup of coffee, is, you gotta find yourself what's called, the right lead magnet. What is it you're gonna be able to put out there into the world that someone is going to give you their email address, right? Just if you on your website, if you say, "Sign up for our newsletter," that gets maybe a 5% conversion rate, something like that, not very high. I help clients with something called an educational email series. You go to a website, you say, take our free 5-day course on the 5 best tactics to grow your business with no money. Now, would you sign up for that? And then we're gonna give you a 5-day course, or our newsletter, right? Well, the educational email course, of course, they get like a 40% opt-in rate. So finding the right tool to get people to engage with your brand and your business makes all the difference. That's how I see it. And you must do this kind of in your marketing business,
Oh,
right?
for sure. And, a common mistakes a lot of small business owners make is they're so focused on selling that they don't take the time to nurture the relationship and actually build out the funnel. What other, I mean, what other common mistakes do you see small business owners making? I think there's a lot of lessons in mistakes.
Oh, I totally agree. Well, I think one of them is, not having what I call multiple profit centers, right? You start your business, you figure out a way to make some money, and you do that thing again and again and again, and you run it into the ground. And eventually, any marketing idea, any marketing strategy, any marketing trick is going to run its course because people are just going to get tired of it or ignore it, or technology is going to change, or attitudes change, whatever it is. So you got to come up with multiple ways to get your name out there, because what is the purpose of marketing? When you start a business, it's kind of like you are alone in a dark room. You know you're there, but no one else does. What does marketing do? It turns on the light. It lets people know that you're out there. So you got to come up with a lot of different ways to turn on the light. So some people are
Yeah.
auditory, and so they need to hear you. Some people are visual. They need to see your video. Some people love to read. They need to find whatever it is you do that way. So you got to do that, and then you got to come up with also multiple profit centers for your own business. So You have one way of making money, then you have a second way, and you have a third way. That way, when this side of your business is down, this side of your business is up, and this side of your business is down, that side of your business is up. That's how you can stick around for the long haul, I think.
Create some stability. Yeah. You've bought and sold businesses, and you have experience in that arena. Um, and I'm a believer in having like what you just talked about. I have 3 businesses, you know, 2 others besides marketing, 1 real estate, 1 construction. And like you say, they balance each other out and depending on what the market is doing. Do you have there's always gonna be I'm 50 more, and and so that, I'm in a different place than I was when I was 30, right? I'm thinking, "Okay, I'm counting down the number of years until retirement, till slowing down." I don't see retirement ever. Most entrepreneurs, I don't think do, but
Right.
I do wanna slow down at some point and do some travel and things like that. So, you have to be, at this point, 10, 15 years out, be thinking, "Okay, what's my exit gonna look like?" Can you speak to that a little bit? Because I know what happens a lot of times is entrepreneurs, and small business owners, they don't think about it until they wanna do it, and then they really haven't made a plan,
Right.
leading up to that.
So succession planning really is super important, and I personally experienced this in my own life. My dad, was the best entrepreneur I ever did, God bless you, dad, and, he took a single carpet store in Southern California where I grew up in the '60s and '70s, and, turned into 20 different stores, right? A good chain of a huge chain. And so we grew up around the dinner table talking about small business and entrepreneurship and things like that. And at the end of his career, it had gotten so big, it wasn't very fun for my dad anymore because he'd become a manager and he really wanted to be an entrepreneur, right?
Right,
So he sold out to his partner and he opened one giant carpet warehouse. And at the end of his career in life, that's what he was doing. He had this one giant carpet warehouse. He loved it. He had his little things he was doing, and he had come up with a succession plan. His succession plan was when he passes away, he's going to give it to his 4 kids and the manager of the business. So he's going to take the business, turn it into 5 things. The manager will run it because we were all minors at the time, and he hadn't come up with an older succession. Oh, I was in college, I guess. Yes. Um, and so that's what happened. He died unexpectedly, a little younger, well, a lot younger than we all wanted. And the 5 of us ended up owning this carpet warehouse. Well, seems like a great idea, right? Except it was a horrible idea because the manager who owned 1/5 of the business ran the whole business. So she would run this business and only get a fifth of the profit or fifth of the money. She hated that, and for good reason she hated that. And I was still in college. My brother was in college. My younger brothers were in high school. So nobody wanted to go into the business at that time. No one was ready to do anything like that. So eventually we had to sell the business to her. Okay. So coming up with the right succession plan is critical.
right,
And if you have a family run business, you have to, check in who does somebody really want to run it? And if they do really want to run it, you got to get them prepped. You got to get them into the business and teach them how it works and get them ready and all those kind of things. So, and then work with an attorney. Like by trade an attorney, although I don't practice anymore. I came to my senses many years ago.
ah,
But you know what? For something as important as this, you wanna come up with a plan and work with your attorney, work with your family, or if you're gonna sell it, then find yourself a broker and really prep and think ahead, because if you don't do that, it's gonna end up how my ours did, which is, not very good and not
right,
the solution, not the result you wanted for sure.
right, right. You're an idea guy, which is one of the reasons why I love you,
Thank you.
because I love ideas.
Yeah, me too.
And, in the course of building our agency, we kind of prided ourselves on being out of the box a little bit. Like we were doing content strategies long before people were doing content strategies. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, like publishing a magazine for a bank. Um, like
Nice.
the fact that the bank was willing to do it was a testimony to them, but it
Right.
became super successful and, actually survived. It's still going to this day
Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
survived 2 mergers and was rebranded twice.
Way to
So
go.
things that things like that, that was for that bank, that was a small community bank at the time, only 3 years old, and didn't have the kiosk presence that the bigger banks did. They didn't
Mhm.
have a branch on every corner, they didn't have a billboard on every street. Um, but the magazine went directly to the people they were trying to target, and provided value and provided, this thought leadership, and it's to this day, very successful.
That's
What are
great.
some low cost, high impact marketing strategies that are kinda your go-to that you love that might be a little out of the box?
Um, that's a good question. So, I'm a big fan of pay per click, even still, because it used to be, advertising was really expensive, right? Because you had to go into mass media, you had to go on a television or a billboard or
Right,
something like that. But now with pay per click, whether it's on Facebook or Google or whatever platform you like, the fact that you can put an ad out there very inexpensively and only pay for that ad once someone sees it, likes it, and clicks on it. And so, when someone sees your ad, right, and likes it and clicks on it, that's a warm lead because it's taken a couple different steps to get there. And so and then you only pay for it once someone clicks on it. I think that's to this day, I still think that's kind of an incredible thing because it's very cost effective. It's very, and in the middle of the campaign, you daily watch what you're doing. And if it works, fantastic. Right. And if
yeah,
it's not
you can
working,
tweak and
you
test
tweak it.
and
Right. And you tweak it
all
on the
that.
go.
Mhm.
You do that kind of stuff with your customers?
Yes, we do.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I love pay per click. I think that's really valuable. Um, one of the best things about marketing, advertising these days and growing your business is it just doesn't have to cost a lot anymore. You know, and if you Google guerrilla marketing and the guerrilla marketing tactics out there today are pretty incredible. We mentioned, email and e-newsletters. I always think that's great because you're staying in contact with people. Um, and going back to AI, using AI to actually reach out to customers to maybe scrape the internet to find leads for you that you can either have the AI follow up on or you can follow up on. That's revolutionary.
Right,
And it's the kind of tool that only big businesses had forever until now. And now we all have access to it. So if you just take the time to figure out how to do it, you're going to get leads. There's three parts to any business. There's leads, sales, and then the actual fulfillment, right? And you have to have that all three of those working all the time to make sure your business works. So what we're talking about right now is just getting some leads and getting people to either make an appointment with you or come to your website or come to your store or whatever it is. It's not that hard if once you figure out the different tools that are out there to do that with.
right. And you know that in the digital age, we're the ability to target our actual
Mm,
low-hanging fruit,
right,
ideal customer, we didn't have that before. That's why we were on TV. That's why we're on,
right,
newspaper ads and things like that. We were just trying to get in front of people, and we didn't necessarily. And, I was back in the age, the beginning of my career, telemarketing and direct mail, like
right.
all
That's
the
funny.
things that now people just like, hate you for if you
Right.
try
No
and do it.
kidding.
Um, but you couldn't really target. You just had to throw it out there
Yeah,
and
yeah,
hope that you
absolutely.
hit some of the people that would be part of your audience. But now we can target it, and that's part of what brings that cost way down. Uh, there's positioning yourself as a thought leader for your particular area
Mm.
is so important. How are some ways that small business owners can position themselves as experts for their
Well,
industry?
so this is what I'm doing a lot these days. I'm helping companies and actually individuals create their own thought leadership. So this is apropos that you asked me about this. I write my column weekly for Inc. And my most recent one for Inc. was why small business people need to become thought leaders, which is the question you just asked. Well, there's so many advantages to it. If you have a podcast, for example, right? Easy and affordable to start a podcast. Uh, if you start a podcast and you start inviting industry experts, people in your field to come on your show, well, all of a sudden you are the expert. You're a step above everybody else because you have the show. My show is called Small Business with Steve Strauss. Oh, I'm Steve Strauss, and that gave
Mhm.
me a branding with small business and in my world, and then you're the one asking the questions, and you're the one hosting the show, and it's something as simple as creating a podcast can really help you become a thought leader, and the advantage of that or, I've written 18 books, but writing a book is much easier in this day of AI also, and self-publishing. It used to be you had to get through an editor and get published. It's not true anymore. Now
Yeah.
anybody can create a book, and a
Actually, you can see my latest book is sitting back there, and it's called Right to Thrive, and it's a 30 day by day guide on how to write a book, a nonfiction book.
oh, way to go. I love
'Cause
that.
I think it's the best business card you'll ever have as a business
You
owner.
stole my line. No. So and right, a book sets you off and, sets you apart, and the advantage is, you're gonna be easier to find, you're gonna be a step higher than everybody else, it's gonna help you with recruitment, it's gonna help you if you're trying to get funding, it's gonna help you with funding. It's gonna having some kind of personal brand where you are seen as a leader in your industry, in your field, just altogether makes your business different and better, and, I think it's one of the best things anyone can do these days, especially with and so how do you do it? You create content that people are gonna notice, whether it's a podcast or a book, or you get on, LinkedIn, and you do LinkedIn regularly, not just once a week or not just here and there, but you do it regularly, that really makes a difference, or whatever, it's Instagram, whatever your area might be. Uh, long form articles, maybe you put them on Medium, or on your blog. That's still important just because it shows your thought leadership. Anything you can do to get your ideas out there is what's gonna make a difference.
Yeah, and I'm gonna throw in here too, because you mentioned podcasts, you mentioned, blogging or long form articles. You mentioned about, having a book. All these things are large form pieces of content that can be redistributed, repurposed it into dozens of pieces of
Right,
content. So, like, for example, this podcast right now that we're doing becomes a video on YouTube. It becomes video clips and shorts on YouTube. It becomes video
right.
reels. We create quote graphics for something pithy that you said, that we'll put out there. It becomes a blog that we write that summarizes the key takeaways from the podcast. It becomes all of these things, that are much simpler to create because you already have the core piece of content
Absolutely, great
to
point.
do it with.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
let's talk a little bit about technology and automation. I know we referenced it earlier, but it's kind of a game changer. Are there specific tools that or strategies that you recommend for
Uh,
streamlining operations and things like
yeah,
that?
you know what? What I would say is, finding, so I follow a guy and I'm on TikTok these days, and it's fun, and I'm making my videos and getting my followers, and I follow a guy on TikTok, and he created his own AI studio. He knew nothing about AI. He said, "I'm gonna make $1,000,000 this year," and he went public with it. He goes, "I'm gonna create an AI studio, and you're gonna watch me do it." And so this guy's really interesting. And so to answer your question, I'm gonna think about what he is often talking about. There are so many different AI chatbots now that do like he showed one yesterday that creates a website in about 5 minutes, gives you the code, gives you the site, creates the site, right, in 5 minutes. It's,
Yeah.
amazing thing. So there are so many different AI chatbots and tools out there specifically that people have made for different tools. That's what I think you gotta go out and look for now. Rather than a piece of software from a big company, maybe, these different chatbots that are out there, uh, really can do it for you, I think.
Well, and I think it can be overwhelming because there's so many options.
Yes.
There's so many tools. There's so many strategies out there. I think it's really important to really understand, one, your brand and use that
Mhm.
as a filter, and two, understand what your goals are, that what you're trying to achieve, and use that as another filter. So as you're examining these different tools and strategies, you're ensuring you're not wasting time and money on things that don't make sense for you.
Absolutely.
I think that gives you a means of figuring it out, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Instead of being overwhelmed by it. Oh, should I do this or should I do that? Just keeping in mind what your
Right.
brand is and what your goals are will go a long way. Um, Let's start because I know this is something that you have experience in, and not a lot of my guests do, but funding can be a concern for some entrepreneurs as they're looking to grow. What are some smart ways to secure financing or grow without investment?
Yeah, so, yeah, I wrote a book called Get Your Business Funded and, creative ways to fund your business. There are so many different ways to fund your business these days. One of the best friends any business has is the Small Business Administration, the SBA, right? And the SBA doesn't make loans, but they guarantee loans. And that makes a huge difference. So maybe your credit isn't the best, or maybe your business is newer. Getting a loan from a traditional bank is going to be difficult. But if you go get an SBA backed loan, that that lender is going to who works at the SBA is going to be far more inclined to say yes to you in your loan request because the federal government is securing your loan. So that
Right.
makes a huge difference. I do work with an organization, Score. You must know Score,
Yeah.
right? So Score is kind of a Peace Corps of entrepreneurs in this country. There's 10,000 SCORE volunteers all over the country. And you go to score.org and you can get a free confidential counselor who will either via email or Zoom or in person help you with whatever it is in your business. And if it's funding, they're going to help you figure out your funding. In fact, SCORE has asked me to sit on their board of directors, which was, a pretty cool honor,
That is,
and
yeah.
I do webinars for them all the time and have for years. And so a SCORE counselor can point you towards some really can coach you for free, some really great funding options that you may not know about. That's what I would say you should do.
Well, and we have a client who's an SBA lender and a SBA third party administrator, and so I've gotten quite the lesson in SBA lending in the last
Oh,
couple
good.
of years working with them. But I will tell you too, it changes all the time. So if it's something that wasn't a fit for you before, you should probably check on it again because a lot of the rules and things have changed
Absolutely.
in the last few years. So yeah, let's look ahead a little bit. What trends do you see shaping the future of small businesses, and how can we keep ahead of that curve?
So aside from all the ones we've been talking about, which are a lot of technology trends, I think the human touch is was actually going to be a trend now because we're all so computerized and
Yes,
AI driven and
I love
technological.
that.
Business still is about relationships. It's about you asking me to be on your show and me coming on your show and us smiling and joking together. And right all of a sudden we know each other now better than we
Yeah,
did. Or now we know each other, right? And so what I see is you're going to have to make sure to keep the human touch in your business. And it's not so easy to do online as it is to do. If someone comes in your store, you can shake their hand, you can crack a joke, you can smile, you can create rapport. Online, it's a little harder. You can do Zoom, you can text and email and all those things, but whatever it is, you wanna make sure you're not losing track of the humanness of your business because people do business with people. They don't do business with your AI, and they don't do business with your technology, they don't do
yeah,
business even with your product. I mean, they love all those things, but they do business with you, at least for we small businesses. So, keeping that in mind, I think is what kind of is gonna make a difference these days.
that's funny that you said that. This morning, I was recording a workshop for one of our brand packages, a do-it-yourself brand package, and basically, we give you the Canva template of a brand book. And then the workshop that I just recorded walks you through every single piece, your brand statement, your brand, you know, personality, your all the things. And even how to pick colors, what different colors mean. Like it's very detailed, goes through the whole thing. Um, and one of the things I say throughout that whole workshop is this is how you humanize your brand. These are ways that you can make your brand seem more friendly.
Right.
Nobody wants to work with a faceless,
No, of course not.
sterile entity, right?
Right.
So, there's ways that we can make our company almost be like a person. I call it the personification of your company, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
You know, back in remember in English class, we used to learn about personification, and it was like animals
Yes.
that we gave
Yes.
human traits to and things like that. Um, so yeah, I think I'm so glad that you said that was your answer because I do feel like um, I'm all about wow, surprise, delight. That's the thing. I repeat that often. And the way that we do that is by doing things unexpected. And they're usually the small things, right? The handwritten note, the
Right.
the unexpected. I mean, I've told this story before too. Like we renovated our house before we moved into it, and we ordered this vanity. It got shipped from California. It arrived. It was a big celebration. Yay, our vanity's here. We're actually going to have a vanity.
Yay.
And when we unpackaged it, like, it was all wrapped up in cardboard and plastic wrap and all the things, there was this little tiny gift box sitting in the sink, which had been covered over with all this cardboard
Okay.
stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm like, "What is this?" So I opened it up, and it was a hand-carved bamboo soap holder.
Oh, that's neat.
And I was like, I was taking pictures of it, using it as an example in their Facebook group for business owners, and because brilliant. I mean, I just spent $2,000 on this vanity, and that probably cost them 4 or $5
Right.
to put in
That
there.
made a huge difference, right.
But I was like, that was just that little unexpected touch that
Love that. That's a
resonated
great
with people.
example.
So, I think there's ways that we can do that. That's part of touch point mapping is what I call it, it's just figuring all those ways that we make impressions and then elevating, like,
Right.
with something small. This has been great, and
I love it.
as we wrap up, what are 1 or 2 key takeaways that you would really wanna underscore or prioritize for the audience to make sure they take it with them?
You know what? Trust your gut. All these entrepreneurs that I mentioned in my newsletter that I watched, these great ones, they have an intuition about something and they trust it and they go with it. Now, look, you gotta test it, make sure it works, and it's not gonna work every time, but you got into this game for a reason. It's not for sissies. You gotta really be brave. But if you're brave and you trust it and you go for it, that's what I think makes a difference. I mentioned my dad, and when I was about 7, I had to write a story about what he did for a living, and I couldn't figure out retail carpet store owner. It wasn't like lawyer or doctor, and he said so I said, "Well, Dad, what do I say? What do you do?" He said, "Well, I'm an entrepreneur." "What? Well, I never heard that word before, you know?" And "What's that?" He goes, "Well, that's a person willing to take a risk with money to make money." And so risk, and I love that, maybe because my dad told me that name, that
Right.
definition. But you know what? Risk is part of the game, but the best entrepreneurs, what I've learned is they take smart, calculated, prudent risks. Every now and then, you gotta take a wild, crazy risk, but you gotta take a risk.
Yes. Well, it's a mindset, right? It's an
Yes.
entrepreneur mindset, and not everybody has it. If you're going to not sleep at night because you're not getting a regular paycheck,
Right.
it might not be a good fit for you to be an entrepreneur. But for me, for you, I can't imagine being anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh,
This has
thank
been
you. Great to be
great.
here. If people wanna find me, they can go to my website,
Yeah.
which is mrallbiz.com, or you can sign up for my fun newsletter. Love it. Obviously, that's my new project. It's called Notes to an Entrepreneur. You go to news.planetsmallbusiness.com.
Okay, I will get those links from you, and we will
Great.
put them down below wherever somebody is listening or watching this.
And thank you, Bethany. I love your podcast, and keep up the great work.
I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Well, I'll be signing up for your
Okay.
notes from an
There you
entrepreneur.
go. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Alright.